Okay. All right. Thanks for logging on and watching this video. I think on this video, I'm just going to go straight through the worksheet that I gave you in class, and I'm going to work all of the evens. All right. So that worksheet is on Schoology if you want to access that. I want to rewrite this up here. So if you don't understand some basic things about solving, you want to make sure you go back and watch that video that I recorded yesterday. Add, subtract, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Okay, so what I'm writing up here, and this I talked about this on the video yesterday, is just opposite operations. I hope that you guys can see that in that screen. If not, I just wrote addition and subtraction are opposite operations, and multiplication and division are opposite operations. And you use those to solve an equation. And pretty much the idea of an equation is when you have two expressions that equal each other. So for example, here in number 2 on this worksheet that I gave you in class, we have negative 6 plus x divided by 4. Now this is an expression. It has no equal sign. But when you set it equal to another expression, like negative 5, then that becomes an equation. So notice you have this expression equals that expression, and these two expressions they weigh the same, they have the same value. So now you have this idea of, okay, well, what you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side of the equation. And the only reason you're doing that is to maintain a balance, right? So if negative 5 is the same balance, or weighs the same as negative 6 plus x divided by 4, if I subtract, if I add 6 to one side, then I have to add it to the other. Because if I didn't, like say for example, I add 6 to this side. Now all of a sudden this side becomes heavier, I guess. So it would look something like this, right? This side it weighs 6 more. So if I do something that's one side, I have to do it to the other side to maintain a balance between the two expressions. Okay? It's an equation. These are equal, and that's why we can do that. All right? So when solving two-step equations, I need to explain something real quick. Now you solve still using opposite operations. So if something is being subtracted, you add. If something's being divided, you multiply. But in the same way, so remember, now because you have two operations going on, there's an order in which you have to actually solve this equation. There's an order of operations that you need to do. Okay? So we know the order of operations to be PEMDAS. And the way I look at PEMDAS is like putting on your shoes. You put your socks on, and then you put your shoes on, okay? And this is when you evaluate something. You want to evaluate in a certain order. You want to do what's in parentheses first, then exponents, multiplication, division, addition, then subtraction last, okay? When you are solving an equation, it's like taking your shoes off. So if I put my shoes on by putting my socks on and then my shoes, to take my shoes off, I don't take my socks off and then my shoes off. No, you take your shoes off and then you take your socks off. So what I'm saying is, PEMDAS is the order of operations when you're evaluating. Do it backward, right, when you're solving. So you want to start with what's being added or subtracted, then multiplied or divided, then what's has an exponent, and then lastly what's in parentheses. Okay? So there's an easier way to think about this, but this is the actual idea behind it. I'm going to erase that just to avoid confusion. Okay? And the way that I always think about it is I start with, if I'm trying to solve for x, right? Solve for x. I'm starting with whatever's furthest away from my x. So x is being divided by 4, and it also has a negative 6 being added to it. Or that's the same thing as like minus 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start furthest away from that x by getting rid of that minus 6. And then I'm going to go to the divide by 4. And get rid of that, because that's even closer to the x. So I'm starting furthest away from the x. So to get rid of a minus 6, I'm going to add 6 to both sides. Okay, so here's my separation line. These are going to cancel. I have negative 5 plus 6, so that's going to be 1. All right, and then what I have left is x divided by 4. And now it becomes really important that you have some way to keep your work organized. A lot of people like to put a line straight down to keep the right side and the left side separated. Okay. So they can make sure whatever they're doing to one side, they do to the other side. Keep it all balanced, all right? Next step, I have x divided by 4. Now I'm solving for x. Next furthest thing away from the x is that 4, and it's the last thing. So to get rid of divided by 4, remember the opposite of division is multiplication. So I want to multiply by 4 on both sides. 4 times divided by 4, those cancel, so it's x equals 1 times 4 is 4. And there's my answer. All right. Now, this is really important. You're going to want to check your work on this because with two-step equations, it's really easy to get things mixed up. So I would go back just to be sure, take 4, plug it back into this original equation. So I have negative 6 plus now x is 4. If we solved it correct, x is 4. 4 divided by 4 equals negative 5. Okay, so what is 4 divided by 4? 4 divided by 4 is 1. So is negative 6 plus 1 equal to negative 5? It is. Negative 5 equals negative 5, so that will work out. Okay? And so we just proved our answer was correct. And this is called two-step equations. Okay? We're solving two-step equations or multi-step equations. Really, it's all the same thing at this point. It's where pretty much, let's see, let's go back real quick. If I have like x plus 2 equals 5, this is a one-step equation because the only one step that I need to do is subtract here. Okay? And I'd have x equals 3. That's a one-step equation. A two-step equation is when instead of just subtraction, I have to do maybe subtraction and multiplication or subtraction and division. All right? So here's my next one. And these are all going to be two-step equations. 4 plus n divided by 5. And this is number 4 on your worksheet. So again, there's two steps here. There's an addition and there's a division. All right? Yesterday was all just one-step stuff. All right, so I'm going to start furthest away from n. There's n. Furthest away from n is that positive 4, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Remember, that line is to keep your work organized. So subtract 4 from both sides. So I have negative 4. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. 4 minus 4 is 0, so those cancel. Plus n divided by 5. So I have n divided by 5 left over. All right. Now I'm down to just the n divided by 5. So in order to get rid of the divided by 5 part, I'm going to multiply by 5 on both sides. Opposite of division is multiplication. So when I multiply by 5 on each side, these 5's cancel. So I have n equals 5 times negative 4, which is negative 20. So n equals negative 20, like that. Okay, if I wanted to check it, I'd go back and I'd plug negative 20 into my original equation. So for example, negative 20 divided by 5 is negative 4. 4 plus a negative 4 is 0. 0 equals 0. Check. So that's the right answer. All right, let's keep going through these because this I will say can get confusing. All right, the more you do them, the better you'll get at them. But initially, it will be for some of you confusing. Negative 1 equals 5 plus x divided by 6. Okay, so in this case, again, I start with what's furthest away from the x. Now, this is, so x, you have a plus 5 on top with the x, and then you have the 5 and the x, both of them are being divided by 6, okay? So the 5 is closer to the x than the 6 is on the bottom, all right? So you want to start by getting rid of this divided by 6 part, the thing furthest away from the x. Notice, again, the 5 and the x are both being divided by the 6. So the 5 and the x are closer together than the 6. And that's the way I see it, all right? Again, the other thing that you'd want to do, potentially, is inverse order of operations. But the way to look at this is the 5 and the x are in parentheses, okay? The 5 and the x are both being divided by 6. Or you might want to say, like, the quantity 5 plus x divided by 6. So you don't touch the 5 or the x until last, because that's what's in parentheses. Okay? These things are paired together. So again, the way I look at it, I just get rid of whatever's furthest away from the x. So if I'm dividing by 6, I want to multiply by 6 on both sides to get rid of that. So 6 will cancel with 6, and I will have 5 plus x equals negative 1 times 6 is negative 6. Okay. The next thing I have is still working with what's furthest away from the x. Here's my x. I have to get rid of that plus 5 now. So I'm going to subtract 5 from each side. The opposite of addition would be subtraction. These will cancel. X equals negative 6 minus 5 is negative 11. I would check that answer. If I'm ever uncertain about anything, I would check these answers by taking that, putting it back into the original equation. So the original equation says negative 1 equals 5 plus whatever my x was, and it should be negative 11, hopefully, divided by 6. Okay, negative 1 equals 5 plus negative 11 divided by 6. So negative 1 equals 5 plus negative 11 is negative 6 divided by 6. Negative 6 divided by 6 is negative 1. So negative 1, I don't know if you guys can actually see that on the screen, but negative 1 equals negative 1. So that would work out. Okay. Working a few more. And again, guys, here's the thing. If you don't understand this, I would get on YouTube. I'd finish watching this video. Then I'd get on YouTube and watch a few more videos. Just type in solving two-step equations, and there'll be plenty of help for you there. Okay? So, next one. We have 2n plus 5 equals negative 2. So again, starting furthest away from the n. So the n and the 5 are together in this parentheses. With what is furthest away is that 2 on the outside of the parentheses. Okay? So I'm going to get rid of that times 2 first. So if I'm multiplying by 2, to get rid of it, I want to divide by 2 on both sides. All right. These cancel. So I have now n plus 5 left over. Notice I just dropped the parentheses, because if parentheses is just on the outside and there's nothing outside of that, then there's no reason to actually have them. All right. So just drop the parentheses there. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. All right, next step is going to be n plus 5 equals negative 1, so I need to get rid of that plus 5. I'm going to subtract 5 on each side. So I have n equals negative 6. That should be my final answer. Again, I would go back, take this, plug it in there, okay, just to make sure. So what I should have is 2 times negative 6 plus 5 equals negative 2. All right. Go back and check your answers. Again, especially with two-step equations. All right. Number 10 says negative 6 equals n divided by 2 minus 10. So again, what's furthest away from that n? So n is divided by 2, and then I'm subtracting 10. So I would say this is furthest away from the n, so I'm going to get rid of that first. So to get rid of a negative 10, I'm going to add 10 to both sides. Remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. Those cancel. Negative 6 plus 10 is 4. 4 equals n divided by 2. All right, next step. Next step, we have n divided by 2. If I want to get n by itself, I need to multiply by 2. So those cancel. I have n equals 2 times 4 is 8. N equals 8. So again, I would check by taking it, plugging it back in. So let's go ahead and check it. So I have negative 6. Here's my original equation. Negative 6 equals n, which is 8, hopefully. 8 divided by 2 minus 10. Okay, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So negative 6 equals 4 minus 10. Negative 6 equals 4 minus 10 is negative 6. Negative 6 equals negative 6. Checks. Checks out. Okay, let's see. And okay, so I promised that I'd work through all the evens, so I'm going to do that, but I'm going to stop talking and now just start working them out. Keep in mind every step that I've been saying, okay? I'm also going to stop writing in different colors. just to get going. I don't want this video to be too long. Okay. I guess I'll just talk, but I won't explain as much. So starting furthest away from the x, divide by negative 12. So notice I'm multiplying by negative 12, so I'm going to divide by negative 12. It's not a minus 12. That's actually a negative 12 being multiplied into all that. So I'm dividing by a negative 12. So negative 12 equals, I drop the parentheses because there's not going to be anything left. Those cancel. 144 divided by negative 12 is negative 12. Now I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. So these cancel. I have x equals 12 minus, negative 12 minus 5. Negative 17. I'd go back and check my answer if I were a great student. Okay, but right now I am in a rush, so I'm not going to check those answers. But if I were you, I would go back, plug those back into the original equation to check them. 10 minus 6v equals negative 104. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, start furthest away from that v, and I'm going to subtract 10. So I have negative 6v equals negative 104 minus 10 is negative 114. And then I'm going to lastly divide. So I have negative 6 times v, so I'm going to divide by negative 6. Okay, so I have v equals negative 114 divided by negative 6. I think that is 19. Negative divided by negative is positive, and then 6 goes into 114 19 times, I think. If I wanted to be certain, I'd go back, I'd plug that in right there to the original equation and see if it actually all works out and it's true. Okay, next one, I have negative 9x minus 13 equals negative 103. Okay, so starting furthest away from that x would be the minus 13. The negative 9 is actually right there on it. It's being multiplied by it. So I'm going to add 13 to both sides. Okay, so those cancel. Equals negative 90 and then negative 9x. So I have negative 9 times x, so I'm going to divide. Opposite of negative 9, or opposite of divide is, or multiply is divide. Divide by negative 9 on both sides. So the negative 9 will cancel with the negative 9. I have x equals negative 90 divided by negative 9 is positive 10. Again, I'd go back and check if I wanted to be certain. Let's see. 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. Okay, I'm getting close. 18. Negative 10 equals negative 10 plus 7m. Okay, so I'm going to, starting furthest away from that m, the 7's attached to the m, I'm going to get rid of this negative 10. Plus 10 on this side. Actually, those cancel out too, so I'm left with 0 here, and then I have a 7m on this side. Next, I'm going to divide by 7. That's the opposite of 7 times m. So I'm going to divide by 7 on both sides, and I end up with 0 equals m. M equals 0. Go back, plug it in just to verify. Okay. M divided by 9 minus 1 equals negative 2. Okay. Start off furthest away from the m by getting rid of that minus 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I have m divided by 9 equals negative 1. Get rid of now the divide by 9. So I have times 9 on both sides. So those cancel. 9 divided by 9. Okay, so I have m equals negative 1 times 9. Negative 9. Okay. You guys, if you get this, then turn the video off and just start working on some of these problems. I'm just trying to get through them all because I told you I would. But at the beginning of the video, again, that's where the actual understanding is coming from. So if you don't understand it at the beginning of the video, then maybe you should come to tutoring and I can explain it in person. Maybe I missed a part that I needed to explain. Or maybe get on YouTube and look up solving two-step equations. I'm sure there's plenty of examples there. Okay, starting furthest away from the k, that's 7, so I'm going to notice 7 times all this stuff, so I'm going to divide by 7. Let's cancel, so I have 9 plus k left over on the left side, and that's going to be equal to 84 divided by 7 is going to be 12. Okay, here's a k plus 9, so I'm going to get rid of that plus 9 by subtracting 9 on both sides. Those cancel. I have k equals 12 minus 9 is 3. And I would go back and check that. And lastly, negative 243 equals negative 9, 10 plus x. Okay. So I'd start off by getting rid of whatever's furthest from the x. So that's a negative 9. So I'm going to divide by, notice it's negative 9 times that stuff, so I'm dividing. The opposite of times is divide. Those cancel. Negative 243 divided by 9. Oh man, 180, 63, so that's 7. I think it's 27. No, that's way off. I don't know what that is right now. For some reason my mind is blanking. Let's do it. If you don't know, if in doubt, use the calculator. 243 divided by 9. It is 27. Okay. So negative 243 divided by negative 9 is positive 27 equals, those cancel, so I have 10 plus x. Remember, keep your work organized. So I have x plus 10, so I need to get rid of the plus 10. I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. 17 on this side, 10's cancel, I have x equals 17. Go back and check it if you want to make sure. Alright, so that's all the video right there. I think I just worked through all the evens on your homework assignment. So if you guys still have questions, do let me know, and I'll see you in class, coming for tutoring, whatever you need to make it work.